Second, you'll see that when you open up the homework, okay, there's I think 4 parts here. All right. Now this covers AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. So what we talked about a little bit with hardening devices, where we had setting all the privilege levels and everything else. Well, we can do that, but with the centralized device. And what AAA does is it does 2 things. It will allow us to set up authentication in a secure manner to infrastructure from local databases where we set up a username and password or username and secret, or it will allow us to do that via a back-end database, a Radius or Active Directory, LDAP, etc. All right? Or any combination thereof. So we can have a combination of setting it up with a back-end server, and for some reason that back-end server is unavailable, we can then default to a local database instead. All right? So there's a lot of different ways we can skin this proverbial cat in order to maintain integrity or maintain access to our infrastructure. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and look at some of the information. So we have user accounts that we're going to create. We're going to be setting up R2 for TACACS, R3 for Radius. They've been pre-configured with Cisco ENP855 as their enable password. Same as homework week 1. Okay, so in the first part here, we're going to configure our local AAA authentication for the console port on R1. So they have a couple little test steps. I'm going to skip over those. First thing is we've got to get onto R1 and set up this AAA and a user account, etc. So I'm just going to go into R1, go to CLI, pull it up here so I can hopefully read most everything. All right. Cisco ENPA55, there we go. And we'll go into global configuration mode. And let's create that user called admin1 with a capital A. Again, case sensitive. Username, admin1, secret, admin1 PA55. All right. Just as a quick sanity check, make sure everything's working. Let's check results. Yeah, looks good. Looks good. All right, cool. All right, pressing on. So now we need to configure AAA authentication for console port access. So the first step in setting up AAA is we've got to turn that feature, that function on. Okay, so that is a global configuration command called AAA dash, space new dash model. AAA space new dash model. That turns on the AAA engine. Okay, so that enables it on R1 and configure AAA authentication for console login to use the local database. So we then have AAA commands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. Like I'll get into this in the theory part next week in lecture. You have to set up authentication first before you can do authorization or accounting. So there's a whole slew of AAA commands. You type in AAA and then question mark, there's accounting, authentication, and authorization. We have to do authentication first. All right, and then we can set up authentication for the enable password, for point-to-point protocol, or for any type of login. So it will be login. All right. We can create a list, or we can use the default authentication list. So let's take a look here. Enable AAA on R1 and configure AAA authentication for console login. It doesn't really state that. All right, so excuse me. We're just going to make this the default list. And then we can say, well, what do we want to default to? Do we want to default to the enable password, a server group, nothing, or the local username and authentication? Well, it says for the local username there in step number 3. So we're going to type in local. Okay? And then this is where we can chain stuff together. All right, so at this point in time, we just need to hit enter. AAA authentication, login default, local. All right. Now that we have that AAA command and user, we just need to go into the console port and set it up to use AAA. So line con 0. All right. Now remember last week you had login space local to set up there on the VTY lines. All right. So instead, this time you're going to have a login command for login checking. But instead of local, we're going to use authentication instead. All right, and then we could set it to if we had set up a actual word, this would actually link back to that object that we said in AAA. Or, since we use default, use default. That's it. All right, let's take a look. Woohoo, looky there. Okay, don't worry, we'll get to this authentication command in a second. This is different. Okay, but we have the authentication command here for the console port. We have it for the AAA method, which is for the console line username. Now we're going to do the VTY lines. I think that is our next step. Sir. If I'm going too fast, stop me. Throw something at me. Whatever.
Go ahead.
Sure.
When you type in the command login authentication, you said it linked to the default. As in, since we linked it to the AAA authentication.
Let me explain. I think I know where you're going with this. So let's just go back and do a show run. Okay. So from here we have AAA authentication, login default local. You see that, right? Okay. This means we're using this is the default method for authentication, is to check the local database. Local database meaning all of the usernames that we have. All right. The line configuration, or excuse me, the console line configuration has login authentication default. So authentication default refers back to the AAA command for default login to be the local database, meaning the users that we have here. Did that explain a little bit better?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, pressing on. Enable AAA on R1 and configure AAA authentication for console login to use default. Okay, we did that. Verify, we did that. So part 2. Let's configure local AAA authentication for our VTY lines. So configure a named list called telnet-login to authenticate logins using local AAA. All right. So we're going to use the same type of AAA command, but this time instead of using default, we're going to create a group, a name called telnet-login. Again, case sensitive. So go back into global configuration mode, AAA, authentication, and now it's going to be a login. And now we'll type in telnet-login. All right, and this is for, again, local databases, right? Or the local users, local AAA. That's it. Enter. Now going to the VTY lines to tie that in is very similar to doing it on the console line, okay? So we can configure the VTY lines to use the named AAA method. So this time line space VTY space 0 space 4. That will configure all 5 lines simultaneously. Prompt changes to config dash line. Okay. Login, authentication. Now we give it that word, that telnet dash login. I'm not using default, we're using telnet dash login. Okay. That's it. All right. Now let's go back and check our results. Wowzer, wowzer, R1's done. Questions on that? Questions on that? Going once, going twice. Sold. Let's press on. All right. Okay. So for part 3. Configure server-based AAA authentication using TACACS Plus on R2. So I think we're done with R1. We'll go ahead and close him up. And let's go to R2, open her up. And there we go, CLI. Password Cisco ENPA55. All right, we're ready to roll. So now in setting up TACACS Plus, the first thing they want to do is, for backup purposes, configure a local username called admin2 with the password admin2pa55. So, real simple. All right, username, admin2, secret, admin2pa55. All right. Verify TACACS server configuration. The TACACS Plus server, all right, is going to have a configuration for R2 in its setup. So you can do that. The TACACS server is here. You can double click on it and go to services. AAA. It's on. It's why is it using radius? That's weird. Gotta change that to TACACS. Oh, server type TACACS. It's already been added. Okay, so it's already there. I apologize. All right, there's the server name, the key, TACACS PA55. Make note of that key. All right. Back to R2. All right. Configure the AAA TACACS server IP address and secret key on R2. Okay, so to configure TACACS, we haven't even done a AAA command yet, but we're just going to set up how it's going to communicate with the TACACS server. All right, so I believe it is TACACS-server. Yeah, TACACS-server. All right, host. And then the IP address. So what's the IP address of the TACACS server? Find that out from the config. 2.1. 192.168.2.1. All right, everybody see where I got that? I got it from the TACACS server itself. All right. And then TACACS server key, right? I think it was TACACS PA55. TACACS PA55. And that takes care of that question. Okay. So, step 4, configure AAA login authentication or console access on R2. Enable AAA on R2 and configure all logins to authenticate using AAA TACACS Plus server, and if not available, then the local database. So this is where we get into the chaining of different things. So here, we're going to, first we've got to start AAA, command AAA space new dash model, AAA authentication. All right, it's still a login type of authentication. All right, it is not the, they say default, or they give me a name. Default AAA authentication method. Enable AAA on R2, configure all logins to authenticate using AAA TACACS server. Okay, so that is the default. So it's going to be default group TACACS Plus. All right. And then if TACACS Plus is not available, we want to use the local database. So we would put local after it. So what that command basically says is, when presented with a reason to authenticate a user for a login, we're going to first look for that user in TACACS. So it will go to the TACACS server. It will look for a user that's there. All right, if the user's there, it'll check the username and password. Good. If the user's not there, it's going to deny the access. It will use the local database if the TACACS server is unavailable. Okay, that's kind of the fail-safe, because if our TACACS server takes a crash on us, we're not locked out of all of our infrastructure. Okay, that's why we do it this way. All right. AAA setup console, same way as you did with the R1. Line, con, 0, login, authentication, default. Okay? Verify. All right. I think that was about it. Check results. Moving right along. Okay, so we have something wrong here. TACACS server host. So we've got the authentication command, list name, key, the username. So there's something amiss here. Let's go back and look. She'll run. Maybe I fat fingered the IP address or something. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I made the server host my own IP, so that's where I goofed up. All right, so let's go back and look. If you mess something up, don't sweat it. Don't freak out. I'll show you how you make corrections. So his IP address is actually 2.2. The 2.1 in that configuration, that was my client IP. So that's where I goofed up. I should have went over here to config. There's the gateway, the interface, and I'd seen that it was actually 2.2. Whoops. That's all right. We're human. We're allowed. So let's take that out. Go back into global configuration mode. and then type in no, TACAC server host 192.168.2.1. Type it, right? Yeah. All right, and let's put the right IP in. I'm just going to hit the up arrow, go over here, take out the no, and change the 1 to a 2. Back to my check. Yeah, that fixed it. Everybody see how I did that? Don't be afraid of making a mistake. Happens all the time. Just know how to fix it. That no command is really good. All right, so there, I gave you about 2/3 of this. The last third is on you. R3 is going to be on you, and here's why. The same concept of putting radius in is the exact same as TACACs. Same format, usernames creation's the same. Instead of TACACs host, it's radius host. Instead of TACACs key, it's radius key, and your line configurations are the same. Questions? God, I'm either really a good teacher or you guys are just scared to ask me questions. I don't know what it is. Sir?
What's the, like, advantages of using TACACs over radius?
Oh, we get in that next week. I don't want to steal that thunder. That's part of lecture. Okay? But in essence, it's the protocols they use. One is open source, one is Cisco proprietary. I'll let you look all that up, or you can listen to me on Tuesday. Okay? But we go over the advantages, disadvantages, pros, cons, the whole 9 yards. Anything else? All right, let's get in and finish up lab 1 real quick. So always save early, save often, file, save as, yada yada. When is homework due?
Sunday.
Sunday night.
It's a Saturday.
Okay, I know. We'll fix that. Edit. I can do it in this class. One of my 471 classes, I gotta go over to IT and like beat somebody up because I put in a help desk request. Yeah, it's gotta be 4.8. Yeah, that would have been bad.
Dude, Sunday doesn't show up on Sunday.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, it's fixed. It's fixed. Everybody, I have witnesses. It's fixed. Okay, good. Thanks for saying something. Keep me honest. Okay, let's. I got lab 1 up here, and I think I have lab 1 on my desktop where I left off last week. And lab 1. Okie dokie. So, let's see, where did we leave off? Like number 5 or number 6, right? I set up the VLANs. Okay, I remember doing that. Did I set the default route on R1? We'll figure that out real quick. Thought I may have. Yeah, I did set up the default route. So there's the default route. So I did do number 6. Did I do number 7? No, I did not. So number 7, we're going to set up a DHCP router, or excuse me, a DHCP service on the router. So to do that, okay, you go into global configuration mode, right? And it's IP DHCP pool. The name of your pool, I don't care what you name your pool. I like pools, I'm just going to call it pool. Alright? Then your prompt changes. Now you're into the actual DHCP service to configure. So from here, we want to set up the network, which is 192.168.20.0. Alright? It's going to be network. 255.168.20.0, 255.255.255.0, that's the subnet mask, /24. Okay? Alright, then it asks to exclude some addresses. 1 through 25 are excluded. Usable addresses are 26 through 253. 254 is excluded. And then set up a DNS server. So for A, B, and C, I'm going to come back to that. Alright? Alright, B is going to be automatically done when I do A and C. I'm just going to set up the DNS server as 192.168.2016. DNS.server 192.168.20.16. Okay, from the DHCP configuration prompt. Alright, to exclude addresses, believe it or not, you have to actually be in global configuration mode. You do not do it within the DHCP scope. You do not do it from within the DHCP scope. So I'm going to type exit, go back to global configuration mode, and the command is IP DHCP excluded -address. Okay? The lowest address and the highest address, they are consecutive. So I'm going to do 192.168.20.1 space 192.168.20.25. That will exclude those 25 addresses. Now, common question I get is, well, we also have to exclude .254. Well, if we do that, won't that like overwrite the one we? No, it won't. Okay, and I'll show you. When we do the show run, you're going to see both those commands in there. So I'm just going to hit the up arrow, delete all that, and instead of .1, I'm going to put in .254. Right? Enter. Right? If I do show run, you'll see that it's right there. We have two separate commands. Those are all the excluded addresses. Everything else that's not excluded is, guess what? Included. Included by default. So you don't have to do anything for B. It's just there when you're done. Number 8. Set up a standard ACL on R1 to deny traffic from that network. Okay? And make that inbound from the public internet. So the public internet is facing switch 2. Okay? So to set up a standard ACL, first off, you need to know what a standard ACL is and does. A standard ACL only works with IP source addresses. Only IP source addresses. It doesn't care about layer 4 information, TCP, UDP, ICMP. It doesn't care about port numbers. It's only concerned with IP address or IP network and the source, all right, field of the IP header. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can do a named source or you can do a number. All right, either way is going to work. So I'm going to show you how you do a numbered one. Command is access list. Your standard access lists are from 1 to 99. So I'm just going to say 1. All right. And then I'm going to deny, because it's asking you to deny traffic. All right. And then the network, which is right there, 117.23.54.0. Now it's going to ask for a wildcard bit. What a wildcard bit is an inverse of your subnet mask. So if your subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, what do you think the inverse of that is? Correct, 0.0.0.255. That's it. All right. Now, if we applied this, what do you think is going to happen? As is.
It'll never allow any traffic.
Bingo. Why?
You're not saying, there's nothing that an IP address can match to be like valid.
And because at the end of every access list there is an implied deny all. So we don't permit anything. We deny that network, absolutely, but the next line is, although it's not even written, if we do a show run, there's our ACL. After that line, there's a deny all. So nothing's going to pass. We applied this to any interface, we're going to break the internet. Okay? And that's what you get to do as a security engineer a lot. You get to break the internet. Okay? So we've got to put a permit there. We have to permit everything else. So how we do that is they go in sequence. So the next line I write is going to be the next line under the one I just wrote. Okay? Access-list 1, still the same number. This is the number of the access list. Permit any. Enter. Do a show run. There it is. That's what it's supposed to look like. Now we have to apply that to the interface that has the public IP, which is G01. Okay? And we have to look at that as which direction is it going? Inbound. Inbound. Okay? So we've got to go into interface G01, and to apply an access list, we have to use, on an interface, we have to use the access-group command. On lines, it's access-class. On interfaces, it's access-group. Actually, I think it's IP access-group. Excuse me, IP access-group. The number of the ACL, which is 1, and are we going to look at packets coming into the interface or leaving the interface? In this case, coming in, so inbound. That's it. So we look at that config for the ACL. We see that we have the access group applied. And word to the wise guys, take this as a lesson learned. Okay? Because when you get into Lab 3 and Lab 4, you're going to be writing access lists that are 10 times as long as this. And you will write them beautifully. I know you will. They're going to be exactly correct, and you're going to lose 3 or 4 points because you didn't put the access group command. Okay? So please keep that in mind. All right. Number 9. Okay, number 9 I'm going to skip over. Why? Because you've had it in homework. You should be able to set up SSH on your router. Okay? If you're not familiar with it, refer back to homework week 1. You did it. And most of you did it beautifully too. Okay? Finally, number 10. On all devices, lock out your aux port, disable your HTTP engine, which you don't have to do if you're doing it back in Packet Tracer. Let me say that again. There is no HTTP engine in Packet Tracer. Skip over that. It's a freebie. Set a password of Cisco123 on your console port. And finally, disable Cisco Discovery system-wide. Okay? There's a couple other things you need to do as well, based on what you've learned in homework thus far. Okay? Let's just do a quick show run. Well, first thing, password encryption. Turn that on. Good. Some of you guys are going to miss that and you're going to lose points. Don't miss that one, please. Okay, let's lock out our aux port and set a password of Cisco123 on our console. So let's make line aux 0. I think it is the exec timeout 0, 0. That'll lock it out. Okay. We can also set a password on it, or we can just type in no login. All right. Let's go to the console line. Line con 0. Log in. Password Cisco 123. There we go. I have to do loading plus. All right, and then to disable Cisco Discovery Protocol system-wide from global configuration mode, no CDP enabled. No, sorry, no CDP run. Excuse me, no CDP run. That's it. So, you got a little bit of work to do on there on number 9, setting up SSH, but I've given you pretty much everything else. Okay? DHCP.
Could you show us about the switch port ones a little bit too?
The switch port?
You mentioned those ones that we need as an extra step.
So on the switch ports, I think I did that last week. Yeah. So on the switch ports, you have to tie them to the correct VLAN. So I'm on switch 1, which is connected to the inside network, VLAN 10. I've got to create the VLAN first. All right. I can create the VLAN just by doing interface VLAN 10. All right, and giving it its IP address. All right. And once I do that, whatever port that I connect the router to, in this case I connected it to Fast Ethernet 01, I've got to go into that interface and do those 2 commands. Switch port access VLAN 10, switch port mode access. Guess what? On switch number 2, you gotta do the same thing except for VLAN 20. Good question. Any other questions? Sir?
For exams, would we be like able to write out the entire thing, or you're just gonna ask like questions like, oh, what does this command do?
Excellent question. So for the midterm and the final, they're written exams. I don't expect you to do anything typing wise. But what you're going to get is you're going to get several questions, primarily a lot of them on access lists. But there's some other things on NTP and SSH, things of that nature. I will give you a code snippet. Say, based on the following commands, what is happening? And then you'll have 4 answers, A, B, C, and D. You have to pick the best answer. Okay? On several of the access list questions, all 4 will be right. You have to answer the best one with the best answer. Okay? Now, I'm not such a jerk as far as tests are concerned. I allow you to bring in 1 sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. I have to stipulate that because the first quarter I ever taught at Cal Poly, I said bring in a sheet of paper, you can fill it out, whatever. I had kids bring in poster boards. And you know what? I let them do it because I didn't stipulate otherwise. I was like, you know what? I am not going to penalize ingenuity. I'm not. And you know what? You go out there and work in the workforce, they shouldn't do that either. Okay? As long as it's ethical, not criminal. All right? You can type it out in 1.001 font. You can bring a magnifying glass in. You can't use your smartphone. You can't use the internet. You can't phone a friend, and you sure as hell can't call Cisco TAC. Okay? And trust me, the week before the midterm and final, I go through like darn near every question. Okay? My average for the students who come to class, and I can tell who comes to class, and you'll see some of you like won't show up and be like, hey man, where's he or she from? I haven't seen him in like 5 weeks. They're the ones who are going to get like 40-something, 50-something on the midterm. Okay? Most everybody that comes, the average is in the 80s typically. All right? I do curve it if there's not 100. Somebody aces it, no curve. I curve it basically based on highest score. So if somebody gets a 92, everybody gets 8 points. Alright? Okay. Typically though, I usually have 1 to 2 students that ace it. Because they prepare. Alright, but I do have that occasional class where I'm like, man, I'm just off my game. I'm not teaching, as well as I should. I don't think I'm off my game this quarter. I'm actually doing really well. Alright? Any other questions? We'll get into more of that later on, in like week 4. Alright, if you guys don't have anything for me, I don't have anything for you. I can get to my senior project team a little early today.